more insight into the evolving relations on the Korean Peninsula. I'm joined by political analyst Brian Becker. He's the executive director of the Answer Coalition. So both sides working toward this third summit. Let's look ahead to next week and some of the sticking points that Jack mentioned. Are you optimistic that they can have some outcomes and some plans to move this relationship forward?
I think Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in realize, especially given what's going on in Washington, D.C., where there are discordant voices and even some within the Trump administration that seem to want to sabotage this process, that they must go forward. They must create or continue to sustain the momentum that they began, in fact, in terms of inter-Korean relations. So they're going towards another inter-Korean summit, building on the April 27th Panmunjom statement where they said, let's set up a peace regime. Let's set up a mechanism to avoid new conflict. Let's have economic intercourse between the North and the South, including building a railway. They have to go forward. Otherwise, they realize that Washington, or some in Washington, will bring this process to a halt. So
actually getting together at the end of the summer versus fall, which was the original plan, a good idea?
A good idea because things are coming off the rails, actually. It's not just that there's an absence of progress on sanctions relief. The United States, Nikki Haley, went to the United Nations on August 3rd and introduced new sanctions. The Office of Foreign Asset Control, OFAC, part of the U.S. Treasury, is imposing new severe sanctions on North Korea, even in the midst of this process, and also severe sanctions on Chinese and Russian companies for doing business with the DPRK. So the North Koreans are looking at this and saying, wait, this is actually coming undone. We must take action somewhere, and that action is on the Korean Peninsula between the two Koreas to keep it on track.
Do you think that President Moon feels some level of urgency and responsibility to keep this going? He seemed to be the glue that held it all together before. Will he do it again?
Moon Jae-in's political survival really rests on this. He's invested a lot of political capital. He's made it happen along with the leadership in North Korea. If this were to come undone, if it starts to blow apart, Moon Jae-in, who is so identified with the process, he too will face a lot of rivals. There's a lot of conservative forces in South Korea, especially within the military establishment, who actually don't want this to go forward. He's got public opinion with him, but again, public opinion can ebb and flow. He has to show palpable results.
Want to look to the sidelines of what's also happening on the peninsula. A lot of sports diplomacy. Some say it began with the Olympics, and now we have this football team joining in with the ROK DPRK's this youth football team playing together next week. We also have the Asian Games in Indonesia, where both the president of South Korea and leader Kim Jong-un were both invited, and we understand that there will be a joint Korean team for 3 sports of the Asian Games. How important has that been on the sidelines as everything else that's happening with the higher level talks, just to have kids and teammates and sports going on?
It humanizes the process, which of course in the Korean context is all important. I mean, the Korean people were one nation for a long time. Terribly, tragically divided, families divided, 10 million families divided. To see Koreans in the North and South and even overseas Koreans coming together and functioning as one, it has enormous psychological and thus political impact on the process. It's also a reminder that the Korean people must have self-determination, that they must have sovereignty, that yes, there are outside forces, external forces, regional and global, but ultimately it must be Koreans who determine the destiny of Korea. This human face, this kind of diplomacy, very important. Let's remember how the US and China first got together. It was ping-pong diplomacy in the early 1970s that gave a human face to the prospects of peace breaking out.
10, 15 seconds left, Brian. If there's something that you're watching for in the coming weeks ahead, what will that one thing be?
The thing that we will be looking for, because I don't think it'll be in Washington, will be in Korea. Will Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong-un come together soon? Perhaps August 15th even. It's a day for all Koreans. It's the end of World War II, the end of Japanese colonialism, considered Liberation Day by North and South. Something soon. That's what we're looking for.
That could be a key date then.
Yeah.
All right, Brian Becker, thank you.